Hey everybody, it is Mr. Burns, and I'm going to explain our first part of our project for day one on our relief abstract sculptures. So the artist that we're going to be looking at is Mark Bradford. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my screen in just a minute, but and later on I'm going to explain about materials and things like that. And I know I'm going to be talking to you guys through our Zoom, and I'll be going over a lot of this, but this video is actually just so that if you need like a refresher or a reminder on how to do something or whatever, this is what this video is for, okay? So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go to my desktop here. So I'm going to share, and then I'm going to hit play, okay? Now, I'm not going to give you too much like background history and things like that. It's just Mark Bradford, he's a working artist right now. He lives in LA, and he kind of got started by looking at, he worked at his mom's hair salon, and he was using these leftover papers. And then he started working with these papers and then layering them and gluing them down and then sanding parts down and then ripping parts off and gluing other parts down. And so if you look at his work, it's all these kind of layers and layers of different types of paper. So we're focusing mostly on the maps. Okay, so he works with he does a lot of big works and small works using paper, but he also does these really cool and interesting maps. And so if we look at some of his work, like this one here, if you really look at it, look how it is like a map of maybe the city area, and if you see all these lines kind of crisscrossing and going all these different ways, those are the streets, and then these big kind of areas that have like squares or rectangles. Those are areas probably where some buildings or houses and things like that are. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at maps and breaking them up into just maybe shapes and lines and playing with a little bit of color. Okay, so look at these pops of color. Look at how these lines are all crisscrossing and going all over the place. And I like that he used like a really like subtle background, which is like kind of this cream color, to really let like this red pop and the black pop out and the whites, and there's like some other little colors, like if you look really closely, there's a pink and a green in there, and he's really using that color kind of all the way around, even if you look on the edges of the painting. Okay, so we're going to look at some more. This one, there's a lot more detail going on. Again, these are really huge. They're very, very, very big. Okay, and so you can see all these little rectangles, and I like this teal color that he's using with some of this pops of yellow, some pops of red, some pops of white. And again, it's real interesting and fun to look at all these different little pieces of this map. I mean, it looks like a big area, maybe a big area, a city area or a suburb area, where you can tell there's a lot of people that live in this area. So if you zoom in really close on one of his pieces, you can really see all these different layers of paper, and you can see parts where like parts have been sanded down. So whatever paper was under, he put paper on top, and then he sanded it, and then you can kind of see some of the parts on the bottom, and you can see these roads going across and little rectangles. And so this is just zoomed in really close on one of his art pieces. So you can see, I mean, these take a long time to do. And they're very interesting. They're really, really awesome. I mentioned in my intro video that he actually has a show right now at the Fort Worth Modern Museum in downtown Fort Worth. And so it's not his map works. I think they have a few map pieces up, but the main idea is these end papers. Like I said, he worked at his mom's salon and helped out with his mom, and they have these little pieces of paper left over when they would do hair. And he was using those papers and layering them, and that's kind of how his whole idea started, with doing all this layered on top of layered paper. And then later on, they came out to this kind of map idea that he's doing. So here's some more. This piece is actually owned by the Rachowski family, which are in downtown Dallas, and they have a warehouse that you can go to, where they have tons and tons of artwork that they've collected over the years. And they actually, I believe they own this piece because it was there a couple years ago when I was there. So it was really cool because I just did a Mark Bradford unit with some of my students that I taught at high school. And then sure enough, there was a piece there that we got to look at and see. And so, but again, I mean, you can tell this is maybe a Google Earth image where it's zoomed in really, really close. And I'm sorry, not close, but sorry, a little further back. You can see all these streets and all these different lines of the streets going across, and all these little areas where housing and buildings and factories and all those kind of things, all just kind of broken in there at kind of a further way. And it looks like it's almost like at night, right? Like it's kind of lit up at night with all the street lights and things like that. So here's one more. This one, like if you look really close in the area where it's mostly dark and black, you can see all the little lines of the streets and things like that. But again, he puts paper down first, glues it all down. And then sometimes he takes string, and then he'll make string, glue the string down to make the lines of the road. And then he'll glue other paper on top of that, and then he sands and just makes all these different layers. And so you see some of the color that was under at the bottom starts to kind of come through as he sands the paper that was on top down. And so again, it's just a really interesting, beautiful look that he gets for doing this kind of style, okay? So we're going to be using Google Earth. Now, if you don't want to use Google Earth and you just want to like make up your own map, like I mean, go for it. By all means, go for it. So with Google Earth, if I click on here, it's gonna take me to Google Earth, which I have right here. And so these were just some screenshots that I did. This is where near my neighborhood, I live kind of close by the Trinity River in Hearst and Fort Worth area. So this is just kind of a quick overview. Here's the Dallas Love Field Airport near downtown Dallas. And so this whole little section might be fun to draw. And you don't have to draw every single little thing in here, okay? That could take forever. Just kind of pick and choose and have fun with the areas that you want to draw. And then here's where I was in Cottrell, Texas, where we have a family farm at. And again, this is just another view where maybe I just only want a little bit of streets, maybe a few little houses. And I want you to think about doing abstraction as in like, just draw like a little rectangle to represent a house or a little square. And so we're just kind of just doing that. I'm not trying to draw every single little detail, but just looking at them if we're breaking them into like small little shapes, okay? So that's kind of just an overall view of kind of how we're going to do this Mark Bradford. I'm going to attach a video I did where I actually created a piece of artwork, which is right here, using Look at the Map. And again, there's so much more that I could have drew here, but I don't want to go too crazy. I just wanted to just make it a little bit more simple and have fun with some color. And then I cut this into a shape. So I used pencil, and then I went back over with a pen, and then I went with marker and a little bit of watercolor just for fun. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the most cleanest looking thing ever, because abstract artwork isn't always like the neatest looking. It's kind of more free and more fun. And so I didn't really think too hard as I went through this. I wanted to have a little more fun and be a little more loose on how I put this whole thing together, okay? So there's going to be a video that I'm attaching to this video of a time lapse where you see me from very start to very finish on this piece. As far as materials go, and I'll have a material list, it's really what you have on hand. I used a watercolor paper for here because I was going to use watercolor. So if you are going to use watercolor, make sure you have a paper that's thick. Like this paper, this is a printer paper. You don't really want to use printer paper for watercolor because it gets real soggy and seeps through this paper. I mean, it's pretty thin. So, but if all you have is markers and colored pencils, just use that. That's fine. It doesn't really matter what materials you have. It's just as long as you have something that you can color, maybe add some pops of color here and there. If you just want to do it with line and pencil and go with pen and that's it, and you don't want any color, hey, go for it. That's okay too. And find a cool map that you really love. Like I said, or you can just make one up. It doesn't have to be one exactly just from Google Earth, but Google Earth is just a great tool to kind of use as well, okay? So have fun. I'm excited to see what your first part of this project is going to be, because again, there's 3 parts, and we're making each part by themselves, okay? And then at the very end, we're going to put all those parts together to make one abstract release sculpture, all right? So again, I'm going to attach the video it's a very fast video of you watching me putting this whole thing together, and hopefully it'll give you some ideas. And At the very bottom of the screen, you'll see a little section where I have my map that I was looking at. And you can look at it. When you look at the map, I didn't pick every single thing from the map. I just picked little parts of it, just kind of went with it that way, okay? Alrighty, guys, so I'm looking forward to see what you guys create for our first parts with using Mark Bradford's ideas and doing mapping and doing pops of color and abstraction, and try to keep it a little simple. Don't go too crazy detailed unless you really want to, okay? So it's really up to you on how more complicated you really want to make it. All right, looking forward to see what you come up with the first part.